Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you so much for being patient with this process. As you know, everything always goes wrong at the time that you need it. But on a serious note, thank you for joining us today. Every single person's participation here is very warmly welcome. As you already know, we're here to discuss the renewed cycle of violence against Rohingyas in Rakhine, as many have also called it a second wave of genocide that's happening against Rohingyas. Without taking much of your time, as we've already begun a little late, I'll introduce myself. I'm Riya Singh Rathore. I'm your moderator for today. Over to you all. Okay, we will begin with a documentary followed by Ali.
Respected dignitaries, guests, and members of the press, today we gather to confront a stark and painful reality that continues to unfold, one that demands our urgent attention and more substantial commitment. 7 years have passed since the Rohingya people of Myanmar faced a brutal genocidal assault perpetrated by the Myanmar's military junta. The horror of the dark period have not faded. Rather, they have evolved into an ongoing tragedy that continues to claim lives and further destruction of the Rohingyas. In August 2017, the world witnessed the systematic extermination of the Rohingyas, with more than 30,000 being killed and over a million displaced. We remember the unspeakable violence, the mass killings, the rape used as weapon, the burning of villages and entire towns, the casting of innocent children into fire. Such acts were not mere moments of violence, but a carefully orchestrated campaign of dehumanization and a genocide through otherization of Rohingya and massive hate campaigns against the community. And yet, as we speak here, the suffering continues. The Rohingya community remains under a siege, with recent attacks by both Myanmar military and Arakan Army, an already dire humanitarian crisis. From the brutal massacre in Hoyasori village to the widespread destruction in Butidong and mass killings in Mongdo recently, the violence perpetrated by Arakan Army against the Rohingya is both heart-wrenching and relentless. When the people think of a genocide, they may think it is a physical attack suddenly made to erase the people. However, genocide is far more complex organization of human beings against fellow human beings. A section of society must believe that dehumanizing a fellow human being is a noble thing. And it can only be done through a spreading of misinformation. They must believe that some people are less human and do not deserve to stay alive. During the 2017 massacre of Rohingyas, we have seen such hate campaigns. While victims are waiting for justice, the people of yet we witness the Arakan Army, a group claimed to be liberating the people of Arakan from military oppression, following a similar pattern of atrocities, propaganda, hate speech, and racism against the Rohingya. Here, I must quote Matthew Smith of Fortify Rights, who have recently wrote on his X platform. If you are racist, you are not a freedom fighter or a revolutionary. You are part of the problem. Freedom is anti-racism. While Arakan Army is finishing an unfinished genocide started by Myanmar's junta, a large civilian society in Myanmar has chosen a silence, a mask that they wore while Rohingyas were targeted earlier by the military. But Rohingya activists like Javed wrote, right is right and wrong is wrong, no matter the timing. If we refuse to stand for what is right because it is inconvenient, then we betray the very idea of a new Myanmar we claim to fight for. How will the new Myanmar differ from the old one if we allow today's liberators to become tomorrow's oppressors? The United Nations highest court, the International Court of Justice, in 2020 ruled that Rohingyas to be a protected group as victims of genocide. All parties in Myanmar must protect the Rohingyas from further harm. However, defying the world's highest court's rule, both the Myanmar military and Arakan Army have continuously targeted the Rohingyas for slaughter, killing, and further destruction of our existence. Today, we're joined by experts here, advocate, activists, and government representatives who have continuously monitored and the development in Myanmar and the Rohingya. I sincerely thank everyone for kindly taking time to join us for this critical press conference. Over to you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ali, for such a strong and important statement. This will be followed by Mr. Shabir Chowmin, who's the director of Rohingya Human Rights Initiative. He's a dedicated activist and a prominent voice for the Rohingya community. And today he will be giving us insights and ground findings from the second wave of violence that's been going on.
Assalamualaikum. हेलो कौन है तो लोग रहे थे ना हेलो अस्सलामुअलैकुम नमस्कार सबको 7 साल पहले भी हम इसी तरह जेनोसाइड की कन्वेंशन के लिए इस क्लब में हम मिले थे सेम जेनोसाइड सेम मंथ सेम टाइम में हो रहा है खाली 25 अगस्त में म्यांमार गवर्नमेंट ने किया था अरकान आर्मी 5 अगस्त और कंटिन्यूसली अगस्त मंथ में चालू है जेनोसाइड ऑनगोइंग चल रहा है क्रिटिकल सिचुएशन है रखाइन स्टेट में 13 नवंबर 2023 अभी तक अरकान आर्मी म्यांमार जनता बाकी अदर ग्रुप्स जो एट्रोसिटी कर रहे हैं रखाइन स्टेट में हमारी टीम क्लोजली मॉनिटर कर रहे हैं 1 तारीख में 2024 होयासिरी विलेज नियर बाय बुदीडांग उस गांव के बगल में 2 मिलिट्री कैंटोनमेंट है एक कैंटोनमेंट का नाम है गांगा ताई 551 एक तम्मा ये दोनों सीनियर मिलिट्री कैंटोनमेंट है उस जगह में जो रोहिंग्यास को अटैक किया है उस विलेज का नाम है होयासिरी वहाँ पे जब हमने लोगों से बात करना शुरू किया एक घर से 35 लोग डेथ हुआ है एक ही बंदा बचा हुआ है उस बंदा की आई विटनेस के जरिए बाकी लोगों ने हमको इंफॉर्मेशन जिस तरीके दिया उसी हिसाब से 750 लोग मारा गया है और 135 लोगों को हमने वेरीफाई कर लिया है नाम एज मेल फीमेल और जो लोग डेड बॉडी थे उस डेड बॉडी को पेट्रोल के जरिए दान का घास से जला दिया गया है। वहां पे मेरा रिलेटिव भी था, मेरा ग्रैंडफादर, मेरा कजन सिस्टर, 6 महीने का बेबी, उनका 6 लोग उस घर में डेथ हुआ है। वहां पे अगर कोई लोग जाने चाह रहे हैं उस सिचुएशन को देखने के लिए, अरकान आर्मी रेस्पॉन्ड करता है, ये जगह हमने खून देख ही लिया है, यहाँ पे तुम्हारा कोई नहीं है, तुम मत आओ। अरकान आर्मी और म्यांमार जनता जो कर रहे हैं ये सब रोहिंग्यास की सिविलियंस एरिया को कब्जा कर रहे हैं। मेन जो एरिया है वहां पे अरकान आर्मी पहुंच नहीं पा रहा है, मिलिट्री वहां बचा हुआ है। ये इन लोगों का प्रोपेगेंडा है, हमें लगता है। दूसरी, वहां पे लोगों को मिलिट्री रिक्रूट कर रहे हैं रोहिंग्या यूथ को अरकान आर्मी के खिलाफ फ्रंट लाइन में इस्तेमाल करने के लिए। अरकान आर्मी भी हर गांव से 20, 30, 40 यूथ को डेली बेसिस, वीकली बेसिस ले जाके मिलिट्री के खिलाफ फ्रंट लाइन में इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं। दोनों तरफ से रोहिंग्या यूथ डेथ हो रहा है और अरकान आर्मी और म्यांमार मिलिट्री जीत रहा है। और इसमें जो हमने फाइंडिंग किए, जो हमने लोगों से बात किया, उसी हिसाब से जो रिपोर्ट इंटरनेशनल की रिपोर्ट, ह्यूमन राइट्स वॉच की रिपोर्ट, रॉयटर्स की रिपोर्ट, बहुत कम चीजें पब्लिक हुआ है। वहां पे अरकान आर्मी की स्टैंड को देखते हुए नहीं लगता है रोहिंग्यास को प्रोटेक्शन देगा। इन लोगों के स्टेटमेंट की जरिए कहा जाता है ये बंगाली है, नफरती लैंग्वेज, जिस तरीके म्यांमार मिलिट्री 70 साल से करके आया है, एट द सेम चीज अरकान आर्मी भी कर रहा है। तो इसलिए उनकी बातों से इंटरनेशनल कम्युनिटी को भरोसा नहीं करना चाहिए। वहां पे इंडिपेंडेंट फैक्ट फाइंडिंग मिशन, इन्वेस्टिगेशन बॉडीज, वहां पे यूएन हो, यूएस गवर्नमेंट हो, इंडियन गवर्नमेंट मीडिएट करके वहां पे सीज फायर कराने के लिए इन्वेस्टिगेशन कराने चाहिए। ये हमारा डिमांड है। दूसरी चीज, 17 मई को बुदिडोंग डाउन टाउन को पूरा टारगेट करके सबको वहां पे, और गांव से लोग जाके वहां पे शेल्टर लिए हुए थे, उस जगह को खत्म करके दिया है। बुदिडोंग की जो मेन हॉस्पिटल है उसको खत्म करके दिया, वहां पे जो मेन स्कूल है उसको खत्म करके दिया। जो लोग स्कूल में जाके पाना लेने के लिए गए थे, शेल्टर लेने के लिए, उस स्कूल को बाहर से बंद करके लॉन्चर से लोगों को गिरा के सबको मार दिया, खत्म करके दिया है। 2 लाख से ऊपर लोग वहां पे डिस्प्लेस हुआ है। उनके पास खाना नहीं है, उनके पास मेडिकल सप्लायर नहीं है, मेडिसिन नहीं है, लोग कम्युनिकेशन नहीं कर पा रहे हैं। वहां सीरियस सिचुएशन है। मैं अप्रैल से लेके अब तक मेरे पेरेंट्स से 2 बार बात कर पाया। मैंने मेरे पेरेंट्स से मैंने बताया लगा क्या सिचुएशन है, क्या है। उन लोगों ने कहा देखो हमको ऐसे भी मरना है, हम यहाँ बांचने वाला तो है नहीं। हॉरेबल सिचुएशन उन लोगों ने मुझे बताया। तो मैंने ये समझा मेरे पास तो और कुछ नहीं है, सिटीजनशिप खत्म हो गया, देश खत्म हो रहा है, सोसाइटी खत्म हो रहा है। मेरे पेरेंट्स कह रहे हैं हम तो बुढ़ा हो गया, हम ऐसे भी मर जाएंगे, तुम्हारा काम तुम करो। इसीलिए हमने ये चीज अरकान आर्मी की एट्रोसिटी जो कर रहे हैं, जेनोसाइड जो कर रहे हैं, उसको देख की फाइंडिंग करके ये प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस करने के लिए सोचा। 5 अगस्त को म्यांमार मिलिट्री के साथ, अरकान आर्मी के साथ फाइट करने के नाम से लोग गांव से निकाल के जान बचाने के लिए बांग्लादेश की बॉर्डर की तरफ आ रहे थे। बांग्लादेश की बॉर्डर की तरफ आ रहे थे, उसी लोगों को अरकान आर्मी ने ड्रोन के जरिए 10-11 ड्रोन गिरा के 300 से ऊपर लोगों को मार दिया है। उसमें आई विटनेस से 4 लोगों से हमने बात किया, उसी बिहाफ पर हमने स्टेटमेंट भी रिलीज किए। मीडिया रिपोर्ट्स वगैरह के लिए भी हमने मदद की है उस काम के लिए। तो अभी 8 जो है टाउन बुदिडोंग में अरकान आर्मी कंट्रोल में है। अरकान आर्मी ये जो जिस तरीके का प्रोपेगेंडा चीजें फैला रहा है, ये चीज आगे जाके और खतरा करके कर सकते, ये सबूत मिटाने की काम कर रहे हैं। जिस तरीके का 2017 में गुदामफरा विलेज में 400 लोगों को म्यांमार मिलिट्री ने मार के गड्ढा में रखा था, इसी तरीके अरकान आर्मी 200 300 ऐसे लोगों को मार रहे हैं, सबूत मिटा रहे हैं। और जब हमने लोगों से ग्राउंड में बात किए, लोगों ने हमको ये कहा, औरत को, लड़कियों को गेम रेप किया गया है, उस लड़की वापस भी नहीं आया है। म्यांमार मिलिट्री ने जब रेप किया था 2017 को, वो लोग बांग्लादेश को आ गया, इसका एविडेंस मिल गया। अरकान आर्मी जिनको लेके जा रहे हैं रेप करके खत्म करके दे रहे हैं। तो इसके लिए इंटरनेशनल यूएन मैकेनिज्म होना जरूरी है अलग से, तब ये पता लगा सकते हैं। अभी थोड़ा मोड़ा जो भी एक्सेस था नेटवर्क का, वो भी बांग्लादेश गवर्नमेंट के जरिए अरकान आर्मी ने प्रेशराइज करके खत्म करके दिए। और म्यांमार का जो सीम है और रेंगून की और स्टेट में म्यांमार सीम चलते थे, उसको हमने इंटरनेशनल पैक करा के वहां पे हमने चलाया था रैकाइंग में। उस सीम को भी, जिसके पास सीम है उसको अरकान आर्मी डिटेन कर रहे हैं, उनको पैसे उछल रहे हैं, और उन लोगों ने ऑर्डर पास किया है किसी के पास सिम कार्ड नहीं रह सकते हैं, और एक दो सिम चलाने के लिए परमिशन दिया है। मंथली 25,000 म्यांमार चैट अरकान आर्मी को टैक्स की तरफ बढ़ना पड़ेगा। हर गांव से डेली बेसिस जो है 5-5 हजार, मंथली 25,000, इस तरह के पैसे अरकान आर्मी को देने पड़ रहा है। तो ये सिचुएशन दिन ब दिन खराब हो रहा है। हम लोग इंटरनेशनल कम्युनिटी को अपील कर रहे हैं, इसको म्यांमार गवर्नमेंट को और म्यांमार मिलिट्री को और अरकान आर्मी को प्रेशर बनाए, लोगों को जान बचाए और ह्यूमैनिटेरियन एड पहुंचाए वहां पर। दूसरा जो है यूएस गवर्नमेंट को और यूनाइटेड नेशन को हम अपील कर रहे हैं, वहां पे एक इंटरनेशनल फैक्ट फाइंडिंग मिशन हो, और यूएन को हम अपील कर रहे हैं यूएन सेफ जोन, यूएन सिक्योरिटी फोर्स वहां भेजे। जिस तरीके 70 साल पहले ब्रिटिश इंडिया ने हुकूमत करके हमको म्यांमार की तरह छोड़ दिया टॉर्चर करने के लिए, अभी 70 साल बाद मिलिट्री भी इस तरीके छोड़ के जाएगा रैकाइंग अरकान आर्मी के अंदर। हमारा मसला जो है हॉल होने वाला नहीं है, तो इसलिए हमारा डिमांड है वहां पे लोगों को सेफ्टी सिक्योरिटी मिलने के लिए यूएन सिक्योरिटी फोर्स होना जरूरी है। एक रोहिंग्या औरत है, 9 मंथ प्रेग्नेंट औरत है, उन्होंने एक शेर टाइप का मुझे वर्ड बोला है, मैं उसको ट्रांसलेशन करने की कोशिश करूंगा, गलती होगा तो माफ करिएगा। मैं एक प्रेग्नेंट औरत हूं, हमारा आंसू कौन देख रहा है? मैं एक प्रेग्नेंट औरत हूं, हमारा आंसू कौन देख रहा है? और हमारे लिए इंसाफ कौन दिलाएगा? हमारे लिए इंसाफ कौन दिलाएगा? मैं भी इंसान हूं, मैं एक रोहिंग्या औरत हूं, मैं भी बांचना चाहता हूं। मेरा बच्चा कहां पैदा करूं? कोई भी बच्चा यहां सेफ नहीं है, मैं बच्चा इस दुनिया में कहां पैदा करूं? थैंक यू।
Thank you, Sabarji. We are deeply saddened by the tragic loss of so many people, including Sabarji's own family members. But our thoughts and prayers are with your family and every Rohingya who has suffered the genocide. Continuing with the program, the next speaker with us, who's joining us virtually, is Mr. Nee San Luin. He's the co-founder of Free Rohingya Coalition and has played a significant role in organizing the Rohingyas' participation in the International Court of Justice, the case against Myanmar. Over to you, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for inviting me to speak at this important event. The world has witnessed brutal killing and displacement of Rohingya in 1978, 1991, 1992, 2012, 2016, and 2017. Following the massive violence in 2017, the Gambia filed a case at the International Court of Justice. Then the International Criminal Court is still investigating the forced deportation case. And the case filed by the Burmese Rohingya organization, UK, is expected to conclude soon. despite an ICJ order to protect the Rohingya in Myanmar, both state actor, the Myanmar military, and the non-state actor, the Arakan Army, have violated and continue to violate this provisional measure. The current situation for the Rohingya in northern Rakhine state is far worse than in 2017. Since 2019, the Arakan Army has committed numerous human rights violations against the Rohingya in the region. However, the Rohingya remain silent for the sake of peaceful coexistence. The fighting has been continuous since November of last year, with the A advancing its territory. Initially, A leadership expressed some commitment to the Rohingya issue, stating that they would respect Rohingya human rights. This led the Rohingya to believe that the A would not be as brutal as the Myanmar military. However, this hope has proved to be unfounded. Since the end of March this year, the Arakan Army has advanced in Budirang Township, forcing the Rohingya in rural area to flee their home. A soldier then looted their houses and burned the villages, carrying out significant massacre across the township. The most horrific massacre occurred on May 2nd, 2024 in Tanshaungkhan, known to the Rohingya as Honya City, where nearly 600 villagers, including children, women, and the elderly, were brutally killed in a single day. Additionally, nearly 1,500 other Rohingya were killed in various villages, including Chaupudao, Ngachendao, and Tamenchao. Some eyewitnesses reported finding many dead bodies, some identifiable as entire family, as they escaped from Budirang to Mongdo through the mountain. It is possible that the AA killed them as they attempt to flee. When the UN reported beheading, it shocked everyone. But the Rohingya were all too familiar with such horrors. According to survivor account, a soldier killed the Rohingya using sniper, rifle, pistol, machete, drone, drop bomb, and artillery. As the Rohingya were driven out of their home in rural area, most sought refuge in urban area. Due to the overcrowded home hosting multiple family, many refugees took shelter in school, hospital, and government offices. The Arakan Army fired artillery into one of these schools at least 3 times. On May 17, at least 12 hours before the deadline for an evacuation order, the A set fire to houses in urban area, displacing nearly 200,000 people. Those who were already displaced were displaced once more. When they attempt to reach Mongdo, the Arakan Army blocked their passage. According to the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, the AA burned down at least 8,500 Rohingya houses. Now the people are concentrated in a few locations in Budirang under AA control, suffering severe human rights abuses and facing the worst humanitarian crisis. Adding to their cruelty, the AA has forbidden the Rohingya from using the Braille network. Most smartphone and basic keypad phone have been confiscated, and the AA has warned that anyone caught using a phone will be sentenced to 3 years in prison. Rohingya youth have become the primary target of the AA. Many have been abducted and disappeared, with their family unable to contact them or learn their whereabouts. On the other hand, the AA is also forcibly conscripting the Rohingya youth. The Arakan Army now offer those who want to leave for Malaysia the option to pay 15 million kyat and take a boat. The cost for those wishing to go to Bangladesh is 2 million kyat. That is from the Budirang. No humanitarian agency are present. No one can leave the area where they are concentrated with no way to earn a living. The Rohingya are entirely dependent on money sent by their relative in the diaspora. They must pay at least 20 to 30% commission to transfer agent reportedly connected to the Arakan Army to receive any amount. With whatever amount money they receive, they must purchase food and other necessity, which can only be bought through the Arakan Army. If someone pay for food commodities, half is taken as a commission, leaving the buyer with only half the value. Moreover, the price imposed by the Arakan Army are 3 times higher than the average market rate. So the buyer effectively received only 20% of the value from the payment they made. After seizing Budirong, the Arakan Army has been advancing into the urban area of Mondo, while the Arakan Army claimed to be fighting against the military. Rohingya villages located on the opposite side of the military base have been attacked daily with drone and artillery. These attacks have resulted in around 100 Rohingya deaths and numerous injuries. As the AA's attack on Rohingya area intensified, on August 5th, thousands of Rohingya from Myanmar town, Myanmar Kenyanda, and Maundy villages gathered at the Naf River bank in attempt to flee to Bangladesh. However, after they assembled there, the Arakan Army dropped dozens of drone bombs, leading to a massacre that claimed the life of more than 200 people, including children, women, and the elderly. The Arakan Army didn't even spare a boat fleeing, dropping a boat that killed everyone on board, only to survive. The next day, at least 2 boats sank and many dead bodies washed ashore in Bangladesh. As of now, downtown Mondo is empty. All Rohingya have been forced to leave their home under what Arakan Army call evacuation. However, this is not an evacuation, it is forced relocation. The Arakan Army has a policy of cleansing the Rohingya from Budirong and Mondo Township. This plan was revealed in a private conversation by Thomen Nai, the elder brother of Arakan Army Chief Thomen Nai, but was leaked. 10 years ago, an article in Foreign Policy also revealed the Arakan Army's religious motive, shedding light on their long-standing agenda against the Rohingya. Undoubtedly, the crime committed by the Arakan Army against the Rohingya amount to crime against humanity and war crime. Discussing AA's crime does not imply that military has stopped committing crime against the Rohingya. Since mid-February this year, the military has conscripted Rohingya youth in Sittwe, Budirong, and Chaupu forcibly. Some have been forced to fight against Arakan Army on the battlefield, resulting in numerous deaths and injuries. The conscripts were also forced to burn Rakhine and Hindu houses in Budirong. News report and other sources suggest about 2,000 homes were burned. Those familiar with the situation have said burning of Rakhine and Hindu houses was led by the Chief of Tactical Command Office in Budirong. The military has allied with so-called Rohingya armed groups such as Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army (ARSA), Arakan Rohingya Army (ARA), and the Rohingya Solidarity Organization (RSO). The majority of the Rohingya regard this group as criminal gang. They fought against the Arakan Army, but when the military retreated, they fled with the military. Their collaboration has nothing to do with the Rohingya people. If they have committed crime against individual or group, they alone are responsible for their action. In conclusion, the Myanmar military has enjoyed impunity since 1962. The wall continued to allow this impunity, enabling military to commit crime. And since the coup in 2021, entire population has been suffering as a result. Now, the AA has become an additional oppressor for the Rohingya. If the Arakan Army enjoy impunity like the military, the future of the Rohingya in Arakan is bleak. The impunity must end. While the military is under sanction from Western government, the Arakan Army needs similar sanction to prevent further atrocity against the Rohingya. Given the severity of the international crime committed against the Rohingya, the world must find a way to deliver justice. The Arakan Army must be held accountable. Thank you. I will end here.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Mr. Tanibrul Miraj Ripun. He is an independent journalist at The Economist, and he is known for his incisive reporting on South Asian affairs. And I would like to request the next speaker to start off along the lines of what we've already discussed, which is as the previous two speakers, Sabirji and Mr. Nisan, has told us. Um, we are seeing a lot of mass killings, using of rocket launchers at schools, forced conscription, abductions, trafficking, and all these things in the Rakhine state. What are your what is the ground reality from Bangladesh? Can you shed a little bit of light on that?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Please, that's why I'm just asking for some clarification. Thank you for the nice and Luin brother. He's really powerful. They are closely monitoring all the situation from everywhere and investigating all those atrocities against the Rohingya. Thank you for all the investigation and dedication for the Rohingya people. And thank you who all are coming and watching us. My heart is there, who are watching us and also hearing us. I myself, Tanvirul Miraz Ripon. I'm working with some international organization from the Cox's Bazar. Yes, from the July, if I don't know where to start. There is a lot of cases. There is a lot of pain, a lot of bloodsheds, a lot of people is coming. But I recently interviewed some people who the very important is really pathetic to share with the human as I'm human. You know, one Rohingya woman who is raped by some Arakan Army's members, and also her husband slaughtered by the Arakan Armies, and also I interviewed some other strong cases like everyone is slaughtered. Just only one is in one family. All the family members are slaughtered by the Arakan Army, and only one is survived. So in the Rohingya crisis or in the Rohingya community, the people of Rohingya, they are facing uh, uh, biggest I mean very dangerous situation in the inside the Rakhine, in the Mongju or Butidong, in other places where the Rohingya people are majority. In the other hand, from the July, I saw some uh, smoke in the border of Shahpuri Deep, Bangladesh side. Saw some houses burning, and also some smokes, and hear some gunfire sounds. I don't know who are they, like Arakan Army versus Myanmar military. Mostly we know the Arakan Army and Myanmar military is fighting, and they are taking shelter, and they are taking shelter inside the Myanmar, inside the Rohingyas village. So the thing is, the Myanmar military and Arakan Army, they are fighting each other in the middle of the Rohingyas village. That's why some Arakan Army or some pro-military opinion. We receiving some pro-military opinion. So like in the middle of the war, that's why the Rohingya people killed. But we interviewed some people who are the witness of the atrocities. They said the Arakan Army slaughtered and continuously killing intentionally and very cool-headedly. So the Arakan Army and military are doing the same thing against the Rohingya to wipe out the Rohingyas from the Rakhine, where they belong actually. So I interviewed some people, some strong cases. Another one thing I saw in the Shahpuri Deep and the Teknaf, Nila, and the in some other areas, which is the bank of the Naf River. So some dead bodies where the many are infant, some are young people's dead bodies and women's dead bodies. So they dead by the. I hear and I also interviewed some people. According to the victims, they said Arakan Army attack on the when they take shelter in the bank of the Nak River, Myanmar side. They attacked on the uh, Arakan Army attack on their gathering. And I interviewed someone. He said, according to the victim, he said there is a lot of bomb is falling on them, and they said the world is maybe finishing today. So so the Rohingya people are facing mass atrocities, and also they they uh, witnessing the many dangerous things, very inhuman things. So the whole world must have to aware on this situation and take the some steps. Also, if I share anything you know, many Bangladesh is not officially allowing any Rohingyas, but unofficially when the people they receive the some people are severely injured, they're allowing to Rohingyas to give some medications. But in the secretly, hiddenly, many Rohingya people unofficially 20,000 people arrived in the Bangladesh, and they are taking shelters in their relatives. But still, many humanitarian organizations didn't noted their names, and also they didn't provide any humanitarian supports to the Rohingya who are arrived in the Bangladesh Rohingya refugee camp. So yes, in 2017, the whole Bangladesh and the whole world saw the lots of Rohingya people coming to the Bangladesh, and also Bangladesh welcomed them. But now, 2024, the Rohingya people are officially Bangladesh are not allowing them. That's why they are coming the hiddenly, and it's now 40 in a one boat, 40 people in other boat, 30 people in other boat, 20 people. But they have a fear in their own because they are facing some issues in also Bangladesh. So so the whole world must have to take that steps uh, to to make a safer place for the Rohingya people. Like Bangladesh also facing the now new crisis. They have changed their government, and now the interim government take the power. So the interim government can take some initiative for the Rohingya peoples. Already, the interim government chief told to the media they will work for the Rohingya people. They are willing for the Rohingya people, but the Bangladeshi government, interim government, must have to take some new initiative to uh, to ensure the Rohingyas' dignity and their human rights, and also take some steps to accountable to the Myanmar military, to the Arakan Army, to help the ICC or ICJ, and also they can collaborate the new initiative with the human rights organization to document the human rights violations from the Bangladesh side, because most of the Rohingya people are coming to the Bangladesh. So that's why the international the new interim government must have to some allow all the international medias who went to work with the work on the Rohingya crisis. So Bangladesh interim government should take some initiative to work with the to work with the international human rights organization, humanitarian organization. Also should allow to work on the Rohingya issues. To should allow to some journalists to who are went to work on the Rohingya issue. So I'm so sorry for my English, but the thing is happening in the Cox's Bazar or in the Mangdu in the bank of the Nak River in both sides. It's really horrible. It's really pathetic to see as a human. There's a lots of case. There's a lots of severe people is coming to the severe injured people is coming to the Bangladesh. So the whole world must take some initiative immediately to stop this, to and also take some initiative to save the Rohingya people and ensure their dignity as human. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Mr. Ong Chomo, who's joining us virtually. He is the first Rohingya to hold a ministerial position in Myanmar's national unity government. He's currently serving as the Deputy Minister of Human Rights. So, before we begin, like a previous speaker said, the killing and the violence is so intense that the speaker was able to see smoke along the Bangladesh border. He was able to hear gunfire sounds. And there's obviously from our first two speakers, we heard that the Arakan Army is killing Rohingyas indiscriminately. So I was wondering, and we here in Delhi were wondering, as the sitting minister, how do you see this situation? And also, could you please shine some light on what is the stance of the National Unity Government on the case? Over to you.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you so much for having me here. It's an honor to be speaking in this timely, important event together with other distinguished guest and speaker here. First of all, it's 7 years that the atrocities being determined at the 8th time as genocide by the United States and other international community. What happened to the Rohingya is has been truly saddening. Looking at the current situations, what other speakers previously has mentioned as well, we stand in solidarity with the survivors and those who are remaining in Rakhine State, those who are in Bangladesh, and those who are spread it across the world due to this conflict and survive from these atrocities, crimes that has been committed systematically with intentions consistently for so long by Burmese military. And I'm honored to be speaking on behalf of the National Unity Government and in my capacity holding as a ministerial positions, I would like to highlight a few key points. First and foremost, the recognitions of the historic wrong. The National Unity Government acknowledged that the 2017 atrocities, crimes that has been determined as genocide by various international community, including United States, Canada, and others, against the Rohingya and it is shameful things, and we are very shameful, and we are working toward the abolishment of the past discriminatory policies, laws, and act, aligning with the new federal democracy charter core values of the justice, equality, and non-discriminations. The commitment to ending the discrimination is consistent with the principle enriched with the federal democracy charter for a new Myanmar based on the mutual respect and inclusivity. These crimes that I have mentioned earlier, that's fall under the international crimes and enable discriminatory politics and rhetoric. The NUG, in alignment with its allies, political allies, seek to rectify this injustice as part of broader Myanmar transition to a inclusive federal democratic union. And as part of the commitment of the government, the National Unity Government acknowledged the past exclusionary practice that contributed to the Rohingya persecutions. In line with the Federal Democracy Charter, again, NUG commits to create a future where discriminations operations are eradicated and ensuring a union where equality prevails and for all ethnic groups, including the Rohingya. And I have carefully listened, and we have been constantly monitoring as well the situations on the ground. And it is very, very important to keep in mind that all that happened is accumulations of systematic, intentional violence that's carried out for decades and decades. And we are at the very dangerous crossroad in Rakhine State and in Bangladesh as well, where people in the Bangladesh side, 1 million people has been refuging for past 7 years. with a very dark future without knowing when they will be able to go back to the place of origin with safety and dignity. While international community and the host government itself, the Bangladesh, to whom we appreciate very much for hosting with the limited resource, a million people are trying their best to be repatriating with safety, dignity to the place of origin. There are people every day attempting to depart from Rakhine State. That's mean that situations in Rakhine State is unbearable, where people are ready to jump to the river, and the land itself became much more dangerous. And recent incident took place, capsize of the boat and attack while trying to flee the violence are the concrete evidence or example of the or indicator of the situations, I would say, in Rakhine State, how horrific it is from a survival standpoint as a human in Rakhine State. And these include like gross human rights violations carrying out by we have been, again, we are constantly monitoring. We have been hearing multiple stories and getting multiple footage and facts figure from different sources that these crimes that being committed against civilians are from multiple sites, including the Burmese military, and then many also highlighted that this is such escalations. The violations are coming from Arakan Army as well, so-called the Rohingya freedom fighters, and which are, as mentioned by the previous speaker, does not solely represent that we understand the Rohingya community. So when it's come to these atrocities, I think it is very, very again crucial to keep in mind that what happened to the Rohingya people is again initiated long before the current situations by the military. And while we are focusing on the current development, which are very, 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 very concerning, it is very, very important to keep in mind that Burmese military is the primary and still remain the primary one of the primary again of human right, gross human right violator on the ground. And we and of course the others, anyone regardless of their political ideology, if they are committing atrocities, crimes against humanity, war crimes, or genocide, we should stand principally to ensure that the fact figures and documentations are collected, that the perpetrators are held accountable. Just because there are political alignment doesn't mean that the person should enjoy or the group should enjoy the impunity. And I think that it's very important that Rohingya people as well are able to put compelling narrative that those who are trying to claim the fighting in the name of Rohingya are not the representative of the Rohingya, as Brother Neselan earlier mentions. And I think the one of the point as well is like when Rohingya are trying to be in the name of some people in the name of the Rohingya trying to march with the military, we are kind of like taking in the wrong side of the history. And I think Rohingya has never been taken in the wrong side of the history. And this is the spring revolutions in Myanmar is a history that's not yet history. So if we are well, a few people are taking in this wrong side of the history, that doesn't mean Rohingya as a whole need to take the collective responsibility of those people. If it is the case, like for example, Burmese military is Burma, nobody's asking Burma people to take the responsibility of the Burmese military. And as well as there are so many other groups as well come from different ethnic groups taking the wrong side of the history. That doesn't mean the ethnic that they belong should take the responsibility. I think we need to be very clear on that, so that the stakeholder within Myanmar understands that Rohingya are in line with the effort of the building inclusive federal democracy, not because just alone Rohingya are asking for the rights that they deserve and justice that they deserve, as well as they are an asset, not a liability to the nation building process of Myanmar. This is very important, I think, to keep in mind. As well, a few other things: the National Unity Government's efforts to establish conditions against conducive to the safe, conducive, voluntary return of the safe displaced of Rohingya people in line again with the Federal Democracy Charter is one of the key priorities. The commitment reflect again Federal Democracy Charter principle of the self-determinations and respects for the rights of the all ethnic nationalities. And we have been making every effort to collaborate with Bangladesh government and UN, United Nations agencies and other ethnic groups to facilitate secure, safe repatriations, resettlement and reintegrations with this joint political objective of the national unity governments and the self-determinations again. And we're also working toward finding a sustainable solutions to ensure that the Rohingya repatriations and reintegrations are sustainable by embedding in the framework of the federalism and national equality and the local self-governance in the joint political statement recently released. And National Unity Government as well emphasized on the sustainable reintegrations reflect against on the Federal Democracy Charter to build a peaceful federal democracy where all ethnic groups can exercise its right. And these support the broader goal of the united in diversity and ensure the Rohingya and other minorities are integrated into the nation building process. Well, lastly, when it comes to the international justice and accountability at the international level, we will continue to work with the international judicial bodies like International Court of Justice, International Criminal Court, to advocate for universal jurisdictions to deliver justice for the Rohingya and other minorities as a part of the broader transitional justice process outlined in the joint political visions with other political allies. And the National Unity Government commitments to the international legal process, including ICC, ICJ, in line against with the Federal Democratic Charter's value and justice and accountability. These efforts resonate with the Charter emphasis on the transitional justice and rule of law as the foundations of the new Federal Democratic Union. And holding the military leaders accountable for their action is the key in it, which align the objective of dismantling the military's political rule and ensuring justice for all people in Myanmar. Last not least, we are also working toward to the larger inclusions of the Rohingya in overall from the very grassroots level to the highest level of the political spectrum in Myanmar. And I myself in an example. And that doesn't mean that inclusions of one person is a silver bullet. And I think we are working towards to the comprehensive inclusions of the Rohingya across the nation building process in Myanmar. And we are also working on the abolishment of the 1982 citizenship law. We are at the final stage to abolish that and which will again contribute to the justice process and other work related to the Rohingya and other minorities who has been profoundly impacted as a result of this law. And the new law will be based on the race of the new law will not be based on the race or religious of someone, but it will be based mostly on the where they are being like based on birth rather than based on the race and religion. These will be again in line with the international norms and standard, the values that we are preaching to international community for a peaceful federal democracy, as well as any other related law that we are going to be abolished, including the national safeguarding law that discriminate a religious minority and so we're working tirelessly on those things. But again, while an active revolution is ongoing and coming to a conclusions of dismantling all the legal framework that has been exercised for so long is a time-consuming and effort-consuming process. But what I can assure here is that the legal component that has impacted Rohingya people will be abolished. Lastly, I think I will take 1 more minute to just ensure that the current situations we are closely monitoring, and all are documented, regardless of the perpetration of the human rights violations on the ground, and the transitional justice is a key in building a new federal democracy. That's mean that regardless of the perpetrators, whoever committed, whether it's military or whether it's ourselves or our allies, will be brought to will have to be facing the existing transitional justice process that's going to be in place. And with that, I end. Sorry, it's taking longer than I expected. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. The rest of our speakers are will be joining us in person, and I request them to join us on the dais. Mr. KP Fabian, can you please join us on the dais? Miss Rita Manchanda, can I also request you? And Mr. Colin Gonzalez. I'll introduce our next speaker, who is Mr. KP Fabian. He's a seasoned diplomat and former ambassador. He brings a wealth of experience to the table with his extensive background in international relations. Given what we've so far discussed, what are your perspective from a diplomat's perspective?
Thank you, Ria, for that introduction. Dear Saber, Rita Manchanta, and Senior Advocate Colin Gonsalves, ladies and gentlemen, I believe we are not running on time. So I propose to take less time. Well, first of all, privilege and honor to be with you, but not a pleasure, because we have been here earlier, 2017, and even later, and frankly, the genocide is continuing. In other words, the international community has not been able to stop it. Gambia took it to the ICJ. That was in 2019. Right? Well, December 2019. So, we are in 2024. Still, now why is it so? You know that there is another genocide matter which is there before the ICJ. Now, in this case, ICJ did say that the Myanmar authorities should prevent acts of genocide. This is what is called politically correct language. You are asked to prevent something, but you are not told that you are doing it. You are not told that you are about to do it. But, politically correct language. Well, so, in terms of international community's response, thank you. Gambia did it partly on behalf of the OIC, which is a good thing. Then other countries got involved. Maldives, UK, France, Germany, Canada, Denmark. I'm not mentioning all of them. Some of them I'm mentioning. But where is the global south? We can't see much of the global south in this, isn't it? Well, that is sad. And if we in India believe assert Vasudeva Kudumbakam, the whole world is one family, well, then we have to act on thereupon. Now, just one more point. I want to ask the question, what the international community could have done in 2017? Well, it should have made good sense for the international community, for the global south, for India or any other country, China, to have proposed the convening of an international conference to discuss what is happening and to see what can be done. Now, that was not done, and I should say that personally, I admire what Bangladesh has done with great difficulty, despite the heavy odds. So, any discussion to make sense should result in some action. Now, I congratulate Rohingya Human Rights Initiative, the young people behind it, and let us hope that sooner rather than later, something will come out of all this. This has to stop. Just to remind all of us, the 1948 Convention on Genocide, the full title is the Convention to Prevent and to Punish the Crime of Genocide. So, the member states of the United Nations have the responsibility. Well, prevention we haven't done, okay, but we have the responsibility to stop it and to punish those who are responsible for it. Thank you so much for lending me your ears.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Ms. Rita Manchanda. She is a research director at the South Asia Forum for Human Rights and is a distinguished researcher, writer, and human rights advocate with a profound expertise in conflict resolution and peace building in South Asia.
Thank you very much, and I am very pleased to be here, though the timing and the subject is very unfortunate, because I really appreciate the fact that the Rohingyas for Human Rights have come together and have shown this kind of vibrant agency. I want to begin on a more philosophic note. When I was growing up, I took totally for granted the truism that human rights are inalienable and they are universal. But then I came across the refugees. Without state backing, no one has any right to really enjoy rights. It is in fact the state that enables you to enjoy the rights that are constitutional, that are fundamental, and that we today do then rhetorically take for granted as inalienable and universal and indivisible. But it is to a state and belonging to a state that we can take for granted these rights. And it is the right to have rights, which is in fact what citizenship is all about. And the denial of citizenship, being stateless, being de jure or de facto stateless, means you do not have the right to enjoy any rights. Oh, I'm not going into, and I will leave that to the lawyers to say, well, you have right to liberty, you have right to equality, and so forth. I think what we have heard today brings out the sheer injustice and the cruelty of a situation where you have no rights. The Rohingyas have not had rights since 1982, when they were declared by an executive fiat that they did not have right to citizenship. They have not had rights. And it is, as everyone has pointed out, these have been waves and in fact escalating, reinforcing waves of cruelty and oppression, which we are again seeing. It's in fact back to 2017, and if not, and even worse. But it's this which, in fact, this was being discussed a few months ago in Geneva. This was being discussed in on June 18. The Human Rights Commissioner was discussing the situation in Myanmar. May has been referred to. In May, there had been a huge massacre, and they were talking about that situation in what was happening in the Rakhine state. Many states, because it's an interactive dialogue, many state representatives spoke up, and then the Indian representative spoke up. What did the Indian representative say? The Indian representative didn't sympathize with, in fact, the tragedy that was unfolding before everyone's eye. Instead, the Indian state representative said, "We support the government of Myanmar in its development activities. We support the due process that is of the Myanmar government in governance, in, as I said, development." Nothing mentioned about atrocities, nothing mentioned about human rights violations, no empathy, no sympathy. A little earlier, you had another report, May 2000, not May, this was in, it was, I think, a report that came out in May 2023 about India being implicated in the supply of arms and ammunition to the military junta. And these agreements, and this involved public sector companies. And these agreements for the supply of arms and ammunition were, a few of them were contracted after 2021, that is after the military coup. And then again, you have a situation where just very recently, the Committee for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination has again expressed alarm at India's practice of mass detention, deportation, and racial discrimination against the Rohingyas. This is the record, this is in fact the profile of the official Indian position as regards the treatment of the Rohingyas is concerned. An expression of, or the raising alarm at, in fact, this kind of racial discrimination and hate speech. They've also expressed concern over hate speech by public intellectuals as well as political figures, and the impunity with which this hate speech is articulated. Now, this is in a sense, this is the international part of the narrative. But then let's look at what's happening within India to raise this kind of alarm. I believe, and I think it is in fact the Rohingyas for Human Rights that have documented that there are 800 cases of detention that they have been able to record. There may be many more of Rohingyas in detention cells, in detention camps, in whatever detention buildings have been so-called identified by the Indian government. And who are these people, these 800? And according to UNHCR, there are 22,000 Rohingyas registered with it living in India. Now, that means they all have UNHCR identity cards. And I think all of you who have, or any refugee or anybody who's worked with refugees who knows how difficult this status determination process is, knows that UNHCR doesn't give you these identity documents without a great deal of verification. And yet, these are not recognized, these are not considered at all of any relevance as far as the Rohingyas are concerned. Now, these 800 people who have been picked up, who are they? Who are these? And to be able to get a sense of who are these people and how long have they been in detention, I think There was a petition that was filed a couple of years ago, Sabira Khartoum, and in the High Court and then finally Supreme Court. In this, you find this woman was, she was, I think, at that point of time, probably 19. She just had a child, so she had a 1-year-old child whom she was nursing. She had come to India in 2018. She had family in the sense of she had a sister here. Here, she's picked up in April 2021. She's asked to come to the metro station for some kind of verification. So here she is. She leaves she's making tea. Because the metro station is quite close to our home, she leaves, in fact, even the pot boiling, her breakfast lying just there, thinking, oh, I'm going for 5 minutes. I'll come back and complete everything. She rushes to the metro station. She's picked up and she's taken. She's not shown any note. She's not given any notice. There's no legal intervention, nothing at all. She is taken to Seva Sadan, which is the detention center. And there are other Rohingyas and there are Bangladeshi illegal immigrants there, in quotes. And there are, alongside, there are actually the Naga Constabulary, which is also housed in this building. But of course, they're separated. Now, if you look at, there is the Salim Allah judgment, which of 2017, then 2020, when the ruling comes, where it says that deportation, that, Rohingyas, there is no non-refoulement, right to non-refoulement, that is right to no pushback, but there is deportation with due process. Now, what is this due process? Due process means that you need to register yourself with UNHCR, go through the procedure of the Foreign Registration Office, and within 3 months, they will verify whether if you claim that you are a foreign national but claiming refugee, asylum and refugee status, then within 3 months, they are supposed to verify whether you are eligible or not. There was no verification done, nothing. It was not that she was found deportable. She was merely a vulnerable Rohingya. She had no money. She had no real family. So they thought, fine, the most vulnerable should be picked up. They pick her up. The verification, which is due process, was only done in 2024 after the intervention of the court. Now, if you look at, in fact, the very unhygienic, very unsanitary conditions of this detention center, most of them, in fact, developed life-threatening ailments. And she did. She developed hepatitis C. But nobody knew what it was because the medical team would just come and give all these placebo tablets and disappear. It was only because of her sister's petition that her medical condition was investigated and finally she was cured. Otherwise, today she would be dead. Just as, in fact, this other girl, 19-year-old Hamida, she was an orphan. She was one of those women who was probably trafficked into India. She had no relatives, so no court case, nobody supervising anything, no medical attention, and she died. Now, these are the pick and choose, these are the due process, these are the people under detention. And I think Colin is here, who is far better informed than me on this. Do we have indefinite detention? Because can these people be sent back? What kind of conditions are they going to be sent back to? 18 people have been sent back since 2017 to today. And where are these people? Have they been able to, in fact, be resettled? Today, if you try and send, and every time India has tried to resend more people back, they have been pushed back because either they've been pushed back because the Myanmar authorities refused to open the gates, as happened with this 14-year-old girl, or in fact, the authorities diplomatically, it said that these are not our citizens. So indefinite detention, India has signed the Convention for the Reduction of Statelessness. then we should in fact be assisting them in third country settlement or resolving it in a different way. But we are not doing that. Instead, what are we doing? We're just picking them up and creating more detention cells. And I don't need to emphasize who are these people that we are picking up, we're choosing. And the final thing that I would like to say is who are these people? Who are the Rohingyas who actually come to India? Those who have family here, but particularly, and if you look at the profile, and I think some research needs to be done on the profile. If you look at the profile, a very large number of them are young women. These are trafficked women. Because why would a 14-year-old girl, a 15-year-old girl who has no relatives in India, why would she come to India? How would she come to India? She's trafficked. What do we do with this trafficked girl? We put her in a detention cell. And worse still, we send her back to be bombed by drones. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Our next speaker is Mr. Colin Gonzalez. He is a distinguished senior advocate at the Supreme Court of India and is a founder of the Human Rights Law Network. Over to you.
So the first thing I'd like to say is that Rohingyas have substantial constitutional rights in this country. All refugees have substantial rights. The only trouble is many of us, even the enlightened, don't know that. And the government story, I remember Juju when he was Minister of State, Home. He threatened to evict en masse all the 40,000 Rohingyas who were staying in the country. And I remember Subramaniam Swamy saying we are evicting them because they are criminals. They have a criminal past. So this story has gone around for so long that we buy into this narrative and we think they have no rights. And we've not signed the Refugee Convention, therefore we have no rights, which is totally incorrect. Yes, we've not signed the Refugee Convention, but we have our Constitution, and it doesn't matter at all because the Constitution protects everyone within the territory of India. The right to life is not right to life for citizens of India. The right to life is for everyone within the boundaries of India. Anyway, so Juju went on with that narrative for a long time. And then I and others, we went to the Supreme Court with well-prepared petitions. It's something we can actually share with you if any of you would like to have a copy. Because you can use that pleading whenever you go. If you go to Kolkata or you go to any of the border areas and you find that they are being evicted, you can use these petitions and go to the local High Court, to the state High Court. In Jammu and Kashmir, we found Rohingyas who were brought there by Reliance. Reliance needed to, put its cables underground or something like that. So then we went from settlement to settlement and found large number of virtually slave labor kind of condition where they hadn't the capacity to negotiate wages, so they were paid really very badly and made to work. And the story in the press was that they've come to the border areas because they had some political intention of undermining the sovereignty of India. So Article 21 is the right to life for anyone within the boundary. And all that we have to do, which we don't do really, we should blame ourselves in India for our lack of attention and our lack of care. Our lack of care. Forget Myanmar. Forget any other country. Bangladesh, of course, has, said something good recently in the papers. But it's just that Indians don't care, really. That racism that we have in our blood is a very deep thing. And it permeates even progressive people. It's just there. All you have to do is to go take a lawyer, take somebody of some good intention and file a case. You can file a case in the Delhi High Court. We filed our case in the Delhi High Court. And the government came up with the usual reply that you don't have rights, you've not signed the convention. So Article 21, as I said, is a constitutional right. When you say right to life, how does it play out in the case of a refugee? Deportation exposes the refugee to a threat on life. Can you imagine sending a Rohingya back to Myanmar or any other place? You might get killed. If you're a woman, you might get raped. So, no refoulement, which is an international principle, is applicable in Indian constitutional law also. Because no refoulement is just another way of saying protect the life of a refugee who, when returned, she will be subjected to violence. That's all, as simple as that. And it's there in judgments. It's not something very novel today, but it's there in the judgments of our court. So that's what we have to do. And I've been telling Shabir, I've been complaining to him, but fighting with him a little bit also at times. He does a lot of work, but I really need him to organize the Indian situation of resistance better. Much better. And we can stop deportations. We can try and stop deportations everywhere in the country, wherever it happens. Whether it's in Hyderabad or Jammu and Kashmir or anywhere. Subramaniam Swamy, of course, with his usual lack of knowledge of things, said that we're going to deport people because they are criminals. And we were working with the refugees in Jammu. So we went. I went with the team and we went from village to village. And every village we stopped, we went to the local police station and asked, is there any are the Rohingyas here? These were Rohingya camps, 16 at that time. I think now much fewer. They've been shifted out to some other place. God knows where they shift them. So the SHO would say, look through his diary and then say, oh no, nothing serious. Some fights among the Rohingyas and some arguments and some theft case and so on. I said, any terrorism case, sir? Any murder case? He said, no. So we went to all the camps. So when I had come back, I was quite familiar with the situation. And when he made this statement, Subramaniam Swamy, I told him, Swamy sir, you're a very respected lawyer. Indeed. And, I was listening very carefully to you. But Swamy sir, I need you to clarify something. I've been to the camps. I've talked to the SHO. SHO says not a single case of terrorism. So sir, can you please check immediately and tell me where you got your data from that they were criminals? You won't believe it. He got up from the podium. You have these breaks for advertisements. He got up from his seat and left the auditorium because I was going to carry on pressing him for where he got that information from. Then if you go to the Rohingya camp, that's one, the deportation part. But there's another part equally sad. If you go to the camps in Haryana and so on where the Rohingyas are, where the Rohingya women can be seen in large numbers. Wow, they drink water from the streams. Can you imagine India, GDP 7%, they're drinking water from the streams and getting sick and pregnant women are falling ill. Awful. So we took another case and the Solicitor General there was on the back foot. He didn't know what to say. So he said, of course, Rohingyas are entitled to the same economic rights as Indian citizens are. So I told the court, please record that, sir. That's a deadly admission. Never does India acknowledge that, you have the same economic rights, food, health, education, housing, as an Indian citizen. And he was so bold as to say, I told him, sir, you go to the hospitals. They don't allow Rohingyas into hospitals, government hospitals. Why? Because this is a hospital for Indian citizens. You're a foreigner. And you're a Muslim. My God. So you don't allow them into your hospitals. They may die, but you don't allow them in your hospitals. You go to schools and the school authorities will tell you, our schools are for Indians. Not for foreigners, and certainly not for Muslim foreigners. And housing, you should have actually, for a refugee, you must have a house, some kind of decent housing. They're all in camps. Then the burning of camps began all over the country. All these racist guys started burning camps of Rohingyas. So we are a country with a despicable record, with a prime minister and a home minister also with an equally despicable record. But at least in civil society, we can certainly, muster our forces a bit. Have Rohingya lookout centers, Rohingya legal aid centers in different parts of the country. And we can certainly provide some credible defense for Rohingyas from today onwards at least. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you so much to our previous two speakers who shed quite a lot of light on what is happening in India and how do Rohingyas who do manage to cross the borders from Rakhine, what are their daily realities in India. Our next speakers are both virtual. Our next speaker is Mr. John Quindley. He's the director of Fortify Rights and has made significant contributions to advocating for the human rights of refugees, particularly the Rohingya community. Over to you.
Thank you for having me today. Hopefully everyone can hear me all right. I really want to thank my colleagues at Rohingya Human Rights Initiative for putting together the event. It's an honor to speak on the panel with Rohingya colleagues and other allies. This event is to commemorate August 25th. I was in Cox's Bazar this year for the anniversary, and 7 years ago, the genocidal attacks happened against the Rohingya people. My organization that I work with, Fortify Rights, stands in solidarity with the victims and survivors of the attacks, and we are committed to seeing accountability for the atrocities, and will continue to work until that happens. As many of my other colleagues on the panel already talked about, Rohingya continue to face ongoing violence by the Myanmar military and also now by the Arakan Army. Today, Fortify Rights published an investigation on how the AA attacked civilians via drone and mortar fire along the Naf River as they tried to flee. This attack and others should be investigated by the International Criminal Court, which has an ongoing investigation into the crime against humanity of deportation related to the Rohingya. And they can investigate other perpetrators for those similar crimes. In Rakhine State in Myanmar, it's an ongoing armed conflict. There are a diverse group of armed actors. Nesa Win on the panel earlier today mentioned some of the armed actors, including the Arakan Army, the Myanmar junta, and a number of Rohingya militant groups. There's an ongoing investigative mechanisms and accountability mechanisms, including the Independent Investigative Mechanism for Myanmar, known as the IIMM. They're mandated to collect and preserve evidence, and they're in the process of collecting and preserving evidence related to the Arakan Army crimes and Myanmar military crimes. As I mentioned before, the International Criminal Court is investigating crimes as well and collecting evidence. This should make perpetrators really worried about future prosecutions. Fortify Rights is actively engaging these different mechanisms and sharing evidence with them, and we plan to share our full investigation today with those different mechanisms. As we documented the violence in Rakhine State, large numbers of Rohingya refugees have fled to Bangladesh. Despite this, my colleagues and I at Fortify Rights are hearing credible reports of how the Bangladesh border guard forces are pushing refugees back to Myanmar. Here in Bangladesh, where I am today, there's a new interim government. The new interim government, led by Muhammad Yunus, should reassess its policies towards Rohingya refugees. First and foremost, it should halt the pushbacks, and it should end pushback policies at the border. My colleagues and I at Fortify Rights have been talking to refugees crossing the border in recent weeks, and they need safety and security. Authorities in Bangladesh should also work with UNHCR and register newly arrived refugees. There's been a full halt on new registration and a block on registrations for many months now, and that makes new refugees arriving to Bangladesh, it makes them not able to access services and humanitarian support. So this makes the camps a very difficult environment. Furthermore, Muhammad Yunus should work with interim government to allow refugees legal status, access to education, work, and freedom of movement in the country. Under the former government led by Sheikh Hasina, she was very restrictive of Rohingya refugee rights. Under her government, Rohingya were basically restricted in every aspect of their lives. And the new interim government has an opportunity to be able to fix the problems that it created for refugees that came here before. And finally, in the middle term, Bangladesh interim government should work with UN and other governments to allow more third country resettlement options for refugees that are under extreme risk, including Rohingya human rights defenders. Lastly, I just want to say Fortify Rights works with Rohingya civil society members. We do some protection support for those at risk, and we continue to train and come alongside Rohingya to document violations themselves. I know we're already super over time, so I'm going to leave it here and I'll wait for question and answers, and happy to join the conversation more. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We do hope that, I definitely agree with you that we do hope that the new government brings in more favorable policies for the Rohingyas. Our final speaker is Ms. Lillian Tan. She is a prominent member of the Malaysian Advisory Group on Myanmar, where she provides critical insights and recommendations on Myanmar's complex political and humanitarian landscape. Over to you.
I hope you all can hear me. Thank you. First of all, thank you so much. And I'm really honored to be part of this extremely important conversation. I will not repeat what has already been said by our other eminent speakers, all of which I absolutely agree with, and I'm really pleased to see that there's a discussion that's happening across regions and internationally. And I think that it's very important for those of us who are neighbors, as well as in the region of Myanmar, and those of us who are in countries which are hosting a large number of Rohingya communities as refugees. It's extremely important that we really do look seriously at the risks that continue to face the Rohingya people. I think that there are so many elements that have to be unpacked when we're trying to think about, trying to stop the mass atrocities of Rohingya, and to try to even get to the point where we can have a conversation about looking at, the root causes of the disenfranchisement of Rohingya, which of course at the very heart is the statelessness of the Rohingya people. But I think at this point, we're so unfortunately, witnessing again mass atrocities taking place, and I think that we need to really prioritize as obviously the international approach, which has already been discussed, but I really think the regional approach is extremely important as well, and that's what I'd like to talk about a little bit as well. There's a few points that I want to discuss before I talk more about ASEAN, which of course Malaysia is, we will be taking up the chairmanship of ASEAN in 2025. So it's very important that we, really start looking more seriously at actual strategies that we can be adopting in terms of addressing the entire Myanmar crisis, but obviously as a priority within that, the situation of the Rohingya. There are distinctions between the overall crisis and the situation of the Rohingya, and I think there are two major ones. One is the statelessness, of course, and secondly also is the genocide. I think these things need to be very, very clearly analyzed and articulated by the regional governments and communities and the wider society and those of us who are trying to assist, because the interventions which are necessary are quite distinct. We of course have to talk about the grave violations of international humanitarian law. We have to talk about the need for humanitarian access, but beyond that, we really need to talk as well about the other thing, of course, that John said earlier is the need for asylum. That's extremely critical. But alongside that, I think is also really atrocity prevention and, what kind of interventions are necessary to be taken up by the governments in the region for, atrocity prevention and genocide prevention. And I think that that's where it's a challenge actually for countries in the region, because we're not really used to talking about it. It tends to be seen as something that comes from the West, although it really isn't something that comes from the West. These are universal principles, as was said earlier by another distinguished speaker. And I think we have to underline that. We have to always keep underlining the fact that human rights are universal. This is not a Western narrative. It is not about promoting, narratives of, foreign agendas. These are actually our values as well. Within ASEAN, for example, we also have a human rights declaration, that was issued many years ago. And in fact, I was reading through it, this week, with all these events, marking the commemoration of the 7 years of the Rohingya genocide. And I realized that actually the ASEAN Declaration of Human Rights is extremely similar to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It has so many points which are absolutely universal, that every person should have an inherent right to life, which shall be protected by law. Nobody should be deprived of life. Everyone has a right to personal liberty, security. They shouldn't be subjected to arbitrary detention and shouldn't be subjected to torture. The right to freedom of movement, the right to even to seek asylum. Actually, that's all in the ASEAN Human Rights Declaration. And I'm sure that in the other regional bodies and other fora in which many of our countries are members of, we have these standards, and we need to learn how to actualize them and to be able to stand up to them and not keep sort of framing this type of narrative as a Western narrative, because I think this kind of thing is coming up quite a lot. Particularly in the geopolitics of today, where we do see atrocities taking place at a massive scale, and genocide actually taking place at a massive scale. And we also see the failure of the multilateral system to prevent that. So I think that in that context, the role of the region, the role of regional institutions, regional organizations, actually is much more important. So just to talk about a few approaches which I think are critical, while we talk about the broader issues of supporting the transition to democracy in Myanmar, that should go hand in hand with efforts to stop atrocities, definitely on the international accountability level, but I think even beyond that, also to really look at what can be done regionally to try to take measures to prevent further atrocities from happening. I think there has to be a real recognition that sometimes, approaches which are focused on promoting democracy or even, preventing conflict, and even I would go as far as saying, even pushing for the adherence to international humanitarian law, it's extremely critical, but it doesn't necessarily result in, preventing atrocities from happening. Because atrocities, genocide doesn't require armed conflict to happen. IHL is the war, is the law. It's the laws of war. It's basically trying to protect civilians within a situation of armed conflict. Even without the situation of armed conflict, I mean, unfortunately, in Rakhine State now, the armed conflict is completely exacerbating the atrocities against the Rohingya. But I think we need to realize that it's not because there's an armed conflict that's happening. You know, this exclusionary ideology that has marginalized the Rohingya in the most institutionalized ways, from stripping them of citizenship, from denial of everything from freedom of movement, to education. Those institutionalized forms of exclusion have been put in place for decades, even before there was an armed conflict as such in Myanmar. And the mobilization of hatred against the Rohingya has also been something that has been going on for years and years. And as I think it was Brother Nesan Nguyen who mentioned earlier, it's sort of like adding a new actor to the actors who are responsible now for mobilizing and sort of leading, that hatred. With the armed conflict now, that you basically have more actors, including the Arakan Army. So we need to, I think, be very wary. Unfortunately, I don't think that we're going to see any easy solutions at this. But I do think that what we do need to do is to really try to build more sense of responsibility as a region. And ASEAN is one forum, obviously, with Southeast Asia. India is a dialogue partner of ASEAN, and I think that hopefully for the ASEAN chairmanship, we've definitely been advising the Malaysian government to be engaging the dialogue partners and also other border countries, definitely India, but also of course Bangladesh, countries that are bordering with Myanmar, and are also feeling the impact very directly. And then again, I think this conversation needs to continue. Let's not wait until the 8th commemoration of the genocide. Let's not wait until the 9th commemoration of the genocide to talk again about this issue. I think there has to be a real recognition, and those the kinds of measures that should be taken, I think, need to be taken at different levels as well. So every country, for example, in India, you do host Rohingya refugees. And I think that if there's one thing that can be done, it's really for, the human rights community, the legal community in India to also try to really engage, your government and your authorities to have a more humane approach to the Rohingya. We're trying to do that in Malaysia as well. We're also not perfect. We're very, very far from having actual humane treatment. There are many Rohingya here in detention. But if there's a way that we can all be much more humane in this effort, as the accountability measures take place, as we're trying to work collectively towards prevention of atrocities. If there's anything that we can do to protect Rohingya and also to really try to empower them, because in the end, I think it's going to be Rohingya who have to lead, in the recovery of the community and in the future of the community. So I'm just going to end there, but I really am grateful to have this opportunity to be part of this conversation.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much to everyone in the audience and also our distinguished speakers for lending us their insights and knowledge about the topic at hand. I'm opening the floor for any questions and answers that anyone might have. Please feel free to raise your hand and then we can proceed accordingly. Are there any questions? Yeah.
Right, regarding the refugee convention you are talking now, they are not providing, they are not being provided this proper facility, refugee facilities and all. Whether they applied for this convention or they are not willing to. And regarding the disinformation campaign which this Arakan Army and the state is propagating, whether any organization is countering it, because internationally most of the information which are being propagated is all false information, misinformation. So whether any organization is countering it, so that international people will come to know the real news.
Okay, thank you. I think, sir, do you want to take the first half of the question?
Can you repeat the question? I don't think a lot of us heard it. Maybe it was kind of hard to hear.
Sure.
Yeah, it is very difficult.
Sure, I'll repeat it. But sir, can you please identify yourself first?
My name is M.B. Chandra. I work for a small media organization called India.
Okay. 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 So the question, sir, please correct me if I misquote you. But the question for the speakers is that he's inquiring about India's role in the refugee convention. What are the hurdles in us signing it or not signing it? And also he mentioned that since there's so much disinformation and misinformation against Rohingyas at the moment, are there any organizations currently on the ground countering the ongoing misinformation?
So there's not much misinformation except what the government says from time to time, which is that refugees have no rights. Now, I spoke about this earlier. I won't repeat. India is a simple country, straightforward. Indian government is a straightforward government. We don't like Muslims. You're a refugee. We don't like refugees also. And if you're a refugee who's a Muslim, we don't like you intensely. Simple as that. Does the constitution protect you? Yes. Can we go to the court and get a stay order against deportation? Yes. Can we get Muslim Rohingya children into schools so that they don't stand outside and watch everybody? Yes. Can we get them admitted free of charge in public hospitals? Yes. Can we have doctors checking them up in their slums free of charge? Yes. But we, as a country and as a people, our middle class is not doing enough. I don't look to the UN. I don't look to any international agency for anything. I don't blame anybody. I blame ourselves. We have the money. Our middle classes have the money. Litigation doesn't cost too much. You'd be surprised at how easy it is to get done. So if we are a lazy nation to enforce our own rights, if we don't mobilize, go to the colonies where the Rohingyas are, go there, meet them, talk to them, meet the lawyer, go to court, then we have only ourselves to blame. That's all. There's no doubt, there's no ambiguity, there's no confusion at all. We have rights in our country. We can enforce. Courts will give you some orders. Not every time you'll win your case, but you can do things.
Just on the convention, India saw it as a Eurocentric, as a convention that was meant, in fact, to wage the Cold War. And the 1951 convention. Initially, we actually were active in the drafting of it. We pulled back when they also said that it would have no relevance for the what they call transfer of population, which was seen as the migration, not saying that the transfer, that the Indians moving to Pakistan or Pakistanis moving to India or populations moving from the territory of Pakistan to India and the territory of India to Pakistan. This was a transfer of population rather than a refugee movement. It was also, as I said, seen as part of Cold War politics, and which is why the refugees were so welcomed initially, because it was seen as a protest against, in fact, the system in the on the other side of the Iron Curtain, that is in the Soviet Union and the Soviet areas of influence. Subsequently, it was felt by several scholars that it's good that India doesn't sign, because then we retain what is called strategic ambiguity. And it's not that we have been against all refugees. Our treatment of refugees is very much a function of our foreign policy. And we have treated the Tibetan refugees in a very different way than we have treated, say, the Rohingyas. We have treated the Sri Lankan refugees in also a very different way. So it really does matter in terms of the kind of politics, domestic politics, as well as our foreign policy politics. In fact, it's not that we don't engage with UNHCR. That is the body, the treaty, the body that manages refugee, internationally manages, the treaty body that internationally manages refugee bodies. We are a member of the executive committee of the UNHCR. In fact, several of the guidelines evolved by UNHCR, including things like no family separation of refugee families, India has had an input. We are also a signatory of the Global Compact on Refugees. So we're very much a part of the international system of management. But we, like all countries, we pick and choose. And it is really a function of our domestic policy as well as of our foreign policy. And there are what are called good refugees and bad refugees.
Thank you. Just last word from Mr. Sahib.
Thank you. I just want to add to the point made, good refugees and bad refugees. Well, 1971, we had 10 million from the then East Pakistan, now Bangladesh. No, when they came, it was still East Pakistan. And if I may say so, they were good refugees. We looked after them. Now, this distinction is invalid legally and morally.
Just a note for anyone taking note, the good refugee, bad refugee is in quotes, in case that is not clear. Anyone online, do you want to address the question asked?
I think there was one question for me. I'm just excited to reply this question.
So there was a question actually that asked why Bangladesh is stopping refugees fleeing from current violence from entering from the border. So I think any of the virtual speakers can choose to answer. Tanvir or 44 right. John, please feel free to add to this.
I think Ripon, go for it. We can't hear you. You're on mute right now.
You're still on mute.
John, you can share the answer. So I think this is my part. According to the Bangladeshi officials, like refugee commissioner and some other foreign officials and some security officials, they are saying spontaneously they are not allowing any Rohingyas because Bangladesh is hardly trying to solve the Rohingya issues. Even we can say still they are trying. They are saying the number of Rohingya people is increasing and it is now huge. So it's a burden issues for the Bangladesh, according to the Bangladeshi officials. So I think they want the solution, a sustainable solution. They are waiting for the international cooperations and international stakeholders. They're waiting for the international stakeholders' responses to solve the Rohingya crisis. I think that's why they are not accepting any Rohingya. But in these recent cases, we saw even we get some serious cases, serious objections to not allowing any Rohingyas. Like Rohingya claim, according to the Rohingya, they say some security officials pushing back them to the dangerous situations or to the middle of the river. Another one thing, Bangladesh is welcoming, according to the officials, but unofficially, they are welcoming the Rohingya people who are severely injured. I saw some bullet wounded, some traditional weapons wielded peoples, and also some pregnant women also arrived here, and also some inhumanly tortured and even gang raped victim also arrived in the Bangladesh, and they are taking shelters and taking medications from the some humanitarian responder. So that one thing is the Bangladesh is expecting one things from the whole world community, the international community. The international community should have to respond to solve this crisis, and also should have to cooperate the Bangladesh and to dignify their rights, and also make a safer place for the Rohingya people, the Arakan, and even Myanmar. So that's the things in my perspective, and also according to the Bangladesh. John, you can share also your opinion.
Yeah, I agree with Ripon's assessment. Ripon knows the situation in Cox's Bazar better than many people, so I agree with his assessment. He's right that the Bangladeshi authorities have allowed injured Rohingya into Cox's Bazar. They've been able to access treatment, but for others, they have pushed them back. It has been a public policy under the Hasina government, the old government, but I think we're going to see a new hopefully some new policies under the new Muhammad Yunus interim government related to refugee pushbacks. So I think a lot of activists, and I know the humanitarian community here, the INGOs working in the Rohingya response will be actively engaging the interim government to allow refugees across the border. So I believe the interim government will do the right thing, and I believe the old policy of pushbacks will end soon.
The problem of Rohingya, their genocides in Myanmar, is not supposed to be a problem of India. This is a problem for Myanmar to sort out. Whether they are refugees in India, we can take care of them. But if the genocide, because of other reason, that they have to, the political stability is not there. So they have to have the problem to be sorted out diplomatically. There is no, I'm not saying not to help them, but the diplomatic effort should be made by Indian government and the Myanmar. Similarly for Sri Lanka and Pakistan, we have no talking business. But still, the international pressure should also be there. Do you feel that international human right has the, they are supposed to undertake such sort of problems which arise, or South Asian region, there should be some body which has to take of the view of this not happening either in Sri Lanka or in Bangladesh or in other, Myanmar and so forth. This is my assumption. Do you agree, or is it not possible? I would like Mr. Colin to say something on this, because he is or the ambassador.
Thank you for a very important and relevant question. I did mention about Bangladesh, East Pakistan, what we did. We did whatever we have to do so that they went back. But when they came here, they were received well. Now, obviously, something similar cannot be repeated. There is no question. But as mentioned earlier, India is a signatory to the 1948 Convention to prevent and punish genocide. Therefore, as I had mentioned, India could have, when it happened, made a diplomatic move to convene an international conference, preferably in conjunction with the United Nations, to discuss this matter, invite all the neighboring countries, invite the P5, invite all concerned, UNHCR and all that, you know. But India did not do that. And the reason why India didn't do that is, already, as already explained, we seem to believe that some refugees are good and they deserve our assistance, help, and some refugees are not so good, so we can ignore them. So, whether it's a question whether we care or not. I mean, there are limits to what we can do. But the important question is, do we care? Morally and legally. Let us answer that question. No, it is not only the ICJ. As I said earlier, all parties, states which have signed the convention are obliged to do whatever they have to do to prevent, and if they have not succeeded in preventing, to punish, and to do whatever they have to do to stop it. It's very clear. We can't depend entirely on the ICJ.
Anyone online who wants to take the question? No. Okay. Any other questions from the audience? Okay.
The Balochistan, the massacre that is happening in Balochistan is itself a matter of great concern, but nobody cares about it. Here there is nothing but.
Can I take that? Yeah. We're talking about Rohingya genocide today. Yes, but this feels quite comparative and we're just talking about Rohingyas today. That's quite belittling, honestly. Any other questions pertaining to the Rohingya genocide specifically? No. Okay. With that, thank you so much to everyone for attending. I will give the floor to Mr. Shabi to close the press conference today. Thank you again, everyone, for attending.
थैंक यू सो मच आप सबको हमारे साथ पार्टिसिपेशन करने के लिए, ज्वाइन होने के लिए, खास तौर पे बसर फाबियन सर, कोलिन सर, दीप्ति, जॉन, ब्रदर नेसोलिंग, ओंचोमो ब्रदर, everyone, we are welcome. Thank you so much for supporting us. We need your support continually to highlight to our voice. We cannot work without your support. Thank you so much. And also, I also thank you, my team members, voluntarily, Riya, Savanvita, Sajia, Rakhine, Ali, and also in our grand team. Thank you so much. I cannot work, and our team also not working these issues without your support. Thank you so much. यहाँ बाहर सब चाय कॉफ़ी के इंतज़ाम है, आप सब लोग चाय पी सकते हैं, वहाँ पे रिफ्रेशमेंट वगैरह भी है. थैंक यू.